Due to my status as a menace to society, I have decided to embarrass two people now. Link's lost 4 subscribers. I don't know when, don't know how. Probably was from the 1,000 they had that just cared about edits. But, that's fine. Um, we have another person to embarrass. Their nickname is Marzi, but their actual YouTube channel is Once Upon a Tea Time. They have the whole tea motif, but I'm just stealing it and talking about my weird tea experiments, which I did have to make a new cup of tea because I wasn't originally planning to record again, so I drank all my tea. But I decided, fuck it, we're recording again. This time I decided to say all hell to it and put a shit ton of the coffee creamer in there. Now I can taste it. Kind of tastes great. I barely put any sugar in it. I kind of like it. It's actually pretty good. It's a hazily, I guess. I think it's hazel flavored. I don't know, but don't forget again to check out Lynx's channel. I will put ads to both of their channels because they wanted me to advertise each other. Originally a Clouds, but honestly, Cloud server freaks me out. Not because like they're mean, it's just big servers are harsher with moderation, so they usually don't give a shit if you weren't being malicious. If you accidentally break their rules, they'll like mute and deafen you or kick you. You know, that's the reason why I don't like the server that much, and I don't interact with it. But it's a pretty pleasant server otherwise. Anyway, this is chapter 20 of Black Cats Are Bad Luck and So Are You, Kid, by Holly. Azuku woke up a while later, his English teacher's voice in his ears trying to rouse him. He whined and tried to clumsily swat the intrusion to his slumber away, but for all his efforts was a small laugh and a finger to his side gently poking him. He huffed and opened his eyes slowly, looking up at the blonde who was smiling down at him. "Good evening, sir. Supper's ready." He groaned and rolled onto his feet, regaining his sense of balance. Sushi was quite heavy and, oh god, the intruders! He sat up quicker than a rocket and began to try and tell the blonde, though all that came out was panic meows. Meow, 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 meow. His teacher watched him curiously, smiling softly and rubbing his head. "All right, kid, I know. I'll get you to your food before Sushi eats it." No! Meow! Though the man couldn't understand his dilemma, it set him on the counter in front of his food. Though he stood immediately and began panically meowing again. Meow, 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 trying to get their attention. The man rubbed his head again and went to sit at the table, ignoring his calls, though his homeroom teacher was watching him with a strange look. He sighed and pointed to Izuku's food. "Eat first, then I'll come get you." Izuku sat down, tail flicking frustratedly behind him, his ears pinned back. He looked at the man a bit more before quickly going over to his food and wolfing it down. After he was done, he stood at the edge of the counter again and began meowing more. Meow, meow, meow. His teachers were still talking and weren't watching him eat so quickly, though they looked over in surprise and a bit of annoyance as he began meowing again. His homeroom teacher sighed and stood, abandoning his food and walking over to Izuku. He reached to pick him up, though Izuku jumped off the counter and towards the balcony door. His teacher watched him go, and with a sigh and a bit of annoyance, his arms falling to his side. "Izuku, what in the hell are you doing?" He sat by the door, looking around for any signs of the men. The teacher walked over, watching him. The man sighed and shook his head, hands on his hips as he watched the child panically sniff the door. He crouched down by the boy and watched him. "Izuku, what the hell are you doing?" Azuku meowed up at him, meow, and pawed at the door. The man looked at it suspiciously. He reached forward and inspected it, finally seeing the unlocked door. He sighed and turned to the man now standing in the hallway to the kitchen, watching the scene unfold. You forgot to lock the balcony door. The man shook his head and walked over, inspecting it himself. No, I didn't. I checked it off my list before we left. He began to inspect the door, and the raven-haired man shrugged and pat the blonde's back. It's okay. It happens, Zashi. The man shook his head, relocking the door. He stepped back and inspected the door more, eyes narrowing. No, I wouldn't forget about this, and I crossed it off my list. I don't do that unless I do something. The raven-haired man sighed and began to look around. The blonde turned as he did and began helping. Zuko jumped onto the couch and watched them, while his homeroom teacher sighed and shrugged. If someone was in here, they took nothing and left nothing. His English teacher sighed and tapped his foot on the ground, rubbing his mustache with his pointer and thumb, smoothing it against his upper hip. Azuka watched as his homeroom teacher sighed and walked over to the man, hugging him gently from behind. The raven-haired man set his head on the other's shoulder and began to slowly rock the other, who groaned and rubbed his face, speaking again. Something happened. I would not have forgotten to do that, and I didn't. It was checked off. The other man sighed and hugged him tighter. Zosh, it's okay. Everyone's safe. I can look into it. You didn't mean to, and some things happened. You probably got distracted thinking about Zuko alone with your asshole cat. The blonde stood for a moment, letting the other's words soak in before finally taking a deep breath and looking back at the others, whose face was still on his shoulder. Okay, fine. I trust you, Sho. The other smiled back as Zuko turned as they began to kiss. It began to get a little heated, so he interrupted them. His English teacher chuckled and leaned down, scooping him up. Sorry, Zuko watched the man pause mid-sentence, looking up at him. The man's eyes were less than happy and more serious now, staring at something on the floor with an intense stare. His homeroom teacher knelt down beside the other and rubbed his hand on the man's shoulder. Zosh, what's wrong? The man pointed down to the floor, and then Azuka saw it. A footprint left by the big guy! His homeroom teacher saw it quickly, too, his eyes narrowing and face turning serious as well. The man's arm wrapped around his husband, and he looked at it, and the other over to Izuku, who was in the blonde's arm. Izuku, was someone in the apartment? Izuku nodded and meowed. Meow! Meow! Using his paw to point at the balcony door, and the blonde's grip tightened slightly on the small black feline. His homeroom teacher grunted and nodded, looking up at his husband, who looked over at him at the same time. A moment of silent communication was whispered between them before they nodded and stood, both bustling around the room. Azuka was set on the counter as they worked. His homeroom teacher took quick pictures of the footprint while the other called the police. After both him and Sushi were set in carriers by his homeroom teacher and placed on the counter, Azuka sighed and resigned himself to the dark plastic cell once more. Though the energy in the apartment had changed drastically from the bright and happy energy the two normally carried in their own home to a more dark and serious one. Azuka found the darkness of the plastic quite comforting for one instead of restricting. So the little black cat curled himself into the dark box, and he could feel Sushi moving around in the carrier beside him, doing the same in his carrier right beside him. He could feel the cat's warmth and smell him from where he was curled up, and it comforted him as the apartment was invaded by loud men and bright lights. Sorry, I'm giggling because I just embarrassed links by sending links to, like, channel to like 3 writing servers that had promotion channels. And the notes are funny. A little said it has a silly headcanon. Azashi having lists for everything. I actually like that headcanon. Slurp the tea. So don't forget to check out Marzy's channel or Once Upon a Tea Time, like I drink in the tea, and Links the Cat's channels. Anyway, bye!